be my last fish short tutorial, and it's about narrative documentation, which is probably one of the more important aspects of writing fish, which is, give an example. Remember, when we're constraining FHIR profiles and FHIR resources is usually for a particular purpose, right? So using the HL7 FHIR accelerators, for example, there's like DaVinci for use cases involving like billing and finances. There's M code for use cases around oncology. There's like what's the other one? Gravity, which is for social determinants of health, or SDOH. Usually whenever you're writing profiles or implementation guides, it's around a particular purpose, and it's really hard for people to figure out what you're doing unless you document it. So in this video, I'm going to talk specifically about how you can create narrative documentation to support your FHIR profiles and FHIR IG. Show you some of the basics area here. Let me tab it over to the next part. So all of the documentation is actually within a Sushi project, and it's not in Simplifier. The Simplifier might have a tool for this. I'm actually not sure, but I do all this usually within a Sushi project, and I'll jump into it to show you more as we get down. But let me just show the layout. So within a Sushi project, you have your input, which is where you put your fish files. And then within the input, you can see here, there's another section called page content. Page content allows you to create files that add to this page at the very top. I'm not going to get too much into that because it's just like the main layout. The meat of it actually is the documentation within a profile, which I'll show next. It all involves around the formal view. So in this one, you can create documentation in the very beginning of a profile, and these are called intro notes, or rather it's in, if you look at the file directory, it's in input and in the intro notes section. And this is all the documentation. It's a markdown file that goes in here. And then the syntax for it is just structure definition, and then followed by dash the ID of the profile you want to create an intro for. So in this case, it's my patient, which is the ID. And then you do dash intro.md, and you can just write whatever. In this case, I just wrote, this is an intro, and it's the top of the formal view. If you go into the fish file, this is what you're accustomed to seeing and what we've been creating on Simplifier. This is just the main views that you see when you render a profile, and it's like the meat of the content. But I do also want to point out one of the keywords whenever you're writing a profile, so the description as one of the keywords, that description actually goes at the very, very top of the profile as well. So you can kind of see it linked up here. That's the description. And then this is everything else that you've been seeing. And then the last part is the notes, and kind of self-explanatory. It's the notes. The syntax is pretty similar. Structure definition dash ID of the profile, and then dash notes.md, and these are just markdown files. Okay, I think that is all I want to show about the narrative documentation. I'm actually going to toggle over to not US Core, VS Code now. You bear with me. So here is my Sushi project. So you can see here in my Sushi project, I have my input, which is where you put all the stuff you want to generate. In input, there's the fish, where we write the fish that we've been doing in Simplifier. You can do that here. You have your intro notes, which is where the bulk of the narrative documentation goes. So you can see this is the same thing you saw earlier. Basic markdown file. I'm not going to teach you how to do markdown. It's pretty simple, though, when you want to learn. And then these are the pages, which I'm not going to go into either. But what I want to show you and give you inspiration for is, what are some examples of things you might put in here? And to do that, what I'm going to show you is, let me go tab over to this screen. Here I have a patient profile from base FHIR. And so you can see what they did. So this is coming from that fish file that you see when you're defining the profiles in those fish. And then they have this section, which is your intro section. So they have a scope and usage. This is actually auto-generated. But use this as an example of what you might want to include. And if I go to another tab over here, You can see this one is actually for US Core. I think I've been following this quite a bit because whenever you're creating a profile, you can just link to the base profile in your markdown file and then just add why you're creating this profile of the base. And in US Core, they do a good job of they add this, kind of description in the beginning, but then they do this kind of, here's example usage scenarios. Here are the additional elements that you require. So now you know that this profile specifically from US Core, you must have these things and you must support. It's a little different than what you saw in base FHIR. And then here's some just additional information. So I point to this because it's a great place to learn about or draw inspiration from of what may go into there. So let's actually just copy what they have. And I will show you how to do that. So I'm just going to use base FHIR right now. And I'm just going to copy all this over to my screen. Let me share what that looks like on here. So I'm going to copy the intro from base FHIR. And then what I'm going to do is they have a scope and usage section. And I'm only going to copy the beginning just to demonstrate what this looks like. So they have this. And then in Markdown, whenever you want to do bullet points, it's just these dashes. Oops. Didn't want to do that. And whenever you're doing this in VS Code, there's a nice rendering thing for it over here. So you can actually see what it looks like in Markdown on the right. But this is what it's going to look like when we render our IG as well. So let me actually open this and close that. So I have this for the intro. And then for the notes, I'm just going to go ahead and copy something from US Core. And so for US Core, in the notes section, they have like this mandatory search. There's a lot of stuff in US Core. Let me just copy this. So they have a section for like quick start. And then they have a bunch of stuff over here. There it is. And then we're just going to add this same thing. Okay. So now we have documentation there, and then we can just add something here too. So just copy this from US Core as well, just to show you how this stuff changes. I'm gonna paste. Perfect. Okay, so now we modified here. This is the main description that will go at the very top. You have your intro notes, which is in your intro. We copied it directly from base FHIR. And then we have this note section, which we just copied from US Core. And so what I'm going to do next to render this is go at the very bottom, go run sushi to generate all the files that I need. I'll just take a minute. No errors. And then I will then run bash gen1.sh. Okay, so this should take just maybe like 30 seconds or so to render. And once it renders, I'm going to open that FHIR IG so you guys can take a look at how that turned out. All right, and this IG should deposit into this output folder that is being generated right now. There it is, and then it will be the output index.html. It'll be this file. So we're going to go ahead and open that. Open output/index.html. Let me share that screen. Where is that screen? Here it is. So here's that screen. So here's my rendered IG. Go to artifacts. Now my patient, in the very beginning, it has that description that I just stole from US Core. If I click on my profile, that same description is at the very top. So this is in our fish profile. This scope section is what we stole from base FHIR, and it is in the intro section. So you can see here, there's a lot of extra space here that I probably didn't want. And at the very bottom here, you have this quick start section, which is in the note section of my markdown that I just stole from US Core. So hopefully this is helpful. Highly encourage you whenever you're writing fish code to add documentation to support why you're constraining a particular resource to describe your profile.